Getting a new client is very exciting, right? Um, you're going to have to excuse me because oh, here we go. Let's make sure that that is muted. Apologies. Okay, so let's restart this. Getting a new student can be really, really exciting. And, while we want to focus on giving them a fabulous first lesson. There are some other things that need to happen as well because, you know, we get so wrapped up in giving a new client a positive first lesson experience. We can kind of turn into like Ariel when she's in her little cave of wonders that she's put together and she's looking at all this stuff going, isn't this neat? Right? That's important, right? It is important. Giving a first lesson that is, going to wow people is a fabulous thing. But you know what's even more important? Giving clients an onboarding experience that is going to set them and you up for success. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the onboarding process and how we can kind of slow things down a little bit and really make sure that our clients feel welcome, that they get their questions answered, that we have showed them around how the studio works, and we've had the opportunity to set expectations. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about the onboarding process, kind of break everything down, and we're going to go through some steps that we can take as business owners to make sure that we're really setting everyone up for success, not just in that first lesson, but long-term success. So, welcome to the broadcast, everyone. I am very excited to get started. I've missed doing this since we've been off for a couple of weeks. If you are tuning in, please be sure to say hello and let me know what you think about your onboarding process. Is it running smoothly, or have you noticed that, a lot of questions come up later on once people have been there a month, 2 months, even 6 months, and you might see that there's some room for improvement. We're going to break that all down today. I'm very excited to do this, but before we do get started, let's play a little intro music while I do some behind the scenes stuff. Here we go. All right, welcome everyone to this Wednesday's topic, which is going to be how to onboard students like a pro. We're going to be breaking things down and we're going to be examining our processes so that we can do all the things that are so super important, right? We're going to be building relationship foundations with new clients when they come into the studio, not just in that first lesson, but that first month, that first couple of months. We're going to talk about setting expectations and answering questions and making sure that things are available to clients in an easy way. And we're going to talk about how we can demonstrate how the studio works so that down the line, you can avoid, hopefully, fingers crossed, having a lot of questions or any kinds of confusion. So let's get started here. I do want to say, if you are new, hi, hello, my name is Sara Campbell. I am a business strategist, marketing, and mindset coach for music studio owners and online education experts just like yourself. And I go live here every Wednesday where we break down those topics. And I've been doing this for a while now. I think technically I've been going live for almost 7 years. And so we've talked about a lot of topics. And, if you're ever looking, just to remind everyone, if you are ever looking for specific topics on business strategies, on marketing, whether it's social media, online marketing or in-person marketing, or if you're looking for, some mindset boosts, we have entire libraries and playlists that are curated here at Savvy Music Studio. You can find them here on Facebook. You can also find them on our YouTube channel in these nicely curated playlists. If you're ever looking for something specific, head over to those playlists and check them out, or you can always send me a message and ask, like, hey, have you ever done a broadcast about this topic, or have you written a blog post about it? Because we have lots of resources for y'all. Okay, so let's get started today. Before we do that, we are going to do a quick housekeeping, and I can already see there's some really great comments coming up. So I want to show you how cool these comments are, right? So like Missy Curl, welcome, welcome. She says, my onboarding process is non-existent and it has made things quite challenging for me. I'm very excited for this. So thank you, Missy. I'm so glad. I'm so glad you're excited for this topic. I can bring up your comments if you're watching here live. I can bring up your comments on the screen. One of the things that we like to do here in having these broadcasts, in like a public forum where we can talk about these things, and kind of work things out, is if you give me a hashtag takeaway. If there's something in the broadcast today that you're like, ooh, yes, I want to implement this, or hey, oh gosh, I learned something new today. Hey, this really struck me as important. Give me a hashtag takeaway and then list your comment, and I'll bring it up onto the screen. If you're watching on the replay, know that I love to have come back and have conversations with you. So, jump in, ask questions, have conversations, and I will be back to do all the things. If you're on YouTube, be sure to subscribe. We've been growing that channel pretty steadily this year, and you can subscribe and turn on notifications for the new videos that we put out each week. And of course, I have earthquake here. I have the Savvy Sara bot set up, and she is ready to deliver the show notes to you. So if you are watching on the Book of Face, if you drop the word onboard down below, you can get a hold of those show notes. If you are watching on YouTube, look in the pinned post or in the description down below, and you'll be able to get a hold of those things there. And I will make sure to get all those things to you. Hey there, Lauren's watching over on Instagram. Hello. Instagrammers, if you want to see the fancy stuff across the screen, you can join us on one of the other channels. Okay, so let's get started. All right. So first I wanted to explain why I chose this topic, because, this is something that has been, a top of mind for me, not only, for myself in onboarding my own clients. I haven't onboarded clients in the studio in a while. Client retention is really high. Yay. But, onboarding coaching clients and things like that. And a comprehensive onboarding process is something that needs to be continually tweaked and revisited over the years, especially if you're starting to notice that like specific questions keep coming up again and again from different clients. That's an indication that there might be some gaps in your onboarding process, and it's time to take a look at those gaps. So we're going to do that today. I've been working with a lot of one-on-one clients in systematizing their onboarding processes so that they don't have to work so hard. And one of the things that we've been doing, and I'm really passionate about this, is kind of slowing the onboarding process down. Because let me know if this sounds familiar to you. When you get a new student, you're super excited, and you have like a stack of papers, or you have a bunch of digital documents that as soon as they sign on, you're sending them a lot of things, and it's happening really fast. And correct me if I'm wrong, you have this inkling in your brain that studio policy that you have so carefully crafted, or those stacks of papers that you're sending back with students, they might be getting signed, but they're not getting read, right? And I know we all work really hard to craft those contracts, those policies, and other documents that we may send to people. And we do that because we know these things are important. And yet we are so excited to get to the teaching part of what we do as teachers, that we kind of gloss over the onboarding process, and it happens really quickly. And because it happens really quickly, what happens is that since we are in a digital age where information, it's just amazing to me how quickly information is thrown at us all the time. This is why I love doing these live broadcasts, right? Where we can slow things down a little bit, have a conversation about things. It's not an 11-second reel where I'm trying to throw information at your face. What we're doing here is kind of slowing it down and having the conversation. And so that's what we want to do with our onboarding, is to, take that process, examine where are the gaps happening, and then figure out how can I make this work better, not just for my clients, to make sure that they have everything that they need, but to also make it work better for you and the studio. so that you can spend less time answering questions, or so that you can put a system in place that makes answering questions really easy. All right. So that's what we're kind of looking at here. So I see, let's see. Okay. Hey, to say hello to some people. Brenda is watching. She's on spring break today. That's great. Grace says the onboarding in her studio feels inconsistent. You're going back and forth between sending too much information and not enough information because you're feeling bad about taking time out of lessons to go over that info. I'm so glad you mentioned that, Grace, because that's something that we're going to be examining today. It's fabulous. All right, so here we go. Let's get to it. So I have 3 points that we're going to go over, and then I'm going to give you some really clear examples about what that might look like. So the first goal here is to start examining, what does your onboarding process look like. We do these onboarding processes and then we kind of get into like a set it and forget it mode, right? Because you've like created the studio policy during the summer and you've sent it out to people. But then when it comes to, people actually reading the things, they don't read the things. Hey, and it's a lot of earthquakes today. Let's be super honest. Like, we probably don't read things either. How many times have you started something new and joined a program or signed up for something and they give you, a 5-page contract or policy and you just skip to the end and you sign your name? Raise your hand if that's ever happened. So what we want to do is we want to start by identifying like where are clients struggling? What questions are starting to come up consistently? And you may start to find, some through lines in it. Are people confused about the way you invoice? Are they confused about the way they book lessons with you? Are they asking about, well, where do I find my lesson notes? Or are they asking about, drop-off times or makeup policies, etc.? So if these things are coming up consistently, then let's make a list of those things. What are the things that you're constantly having to reiterate or to answer questions about? Where are there these like stuck points or even like challenges that you might be facing? What are the things that you see in students in the first month or maybe the first 3 months where they might be struggling? So it's not just about policies. It's not, just about what is the price, how do I submit payment, how do I log on to lessons, that kind of thing. It can even, travel into things like, what are the practice expectations? How do I help my young piano student at home after they've had a lesson and I haven't been able to sit in on the lesson? There are so many opportunities here to look at the onboarding process and think about how can I best support 3 people, right? And the 3 people are the student, the client that is in front of you who is sitting on that bench or standing at that music stand. If that client is K through 12, we have another person. How can I support the parent or the guardian of this student in order to make sure that they feel seen, heard, appreciated, that they are looped into things? And of course, how can I support myself so that I can make sure my processes are running smoothly and I'm not having to work harder than necessary in order to like make this onboarding process smooth. So we start by making a list of the gaps in the process and we think about, where are the areas that I could improve. So I would love to know from those who are listening today or on the replay, where do you feel like you might want to, improve? Where are some gaps? What are some of the questions that are coming up consistently? I love that this is almost like an exact match for the teal that's on the screen. It makes me really happy. So I will share, for me, one of the things that I've noticed for my one-on-one coaching clients is that a consistent question that comes up is like, where is the button where I can schedule additional sessions with you? And while I, do have that in the documents, it's inside, a document inside of their Google Drive, and I do brief over it briefly. I do realize in this year, I think I want to redo that onboarding process so that I can make it easier for someone to know exactly where that information is and then guide them through the process of either bookmarking that link or, making sure that they save that email so that they can quickly find it, and just guiding them through that process. So that's just one of the examples that I might think of in mine. Hey there, Kathy. Nice to see you. Thanks so much for tuning in today. So start by examining the gaps. Make a list of those things that need to that you might be answering consistently, and you want to make that a little bit easier. Our second item here, let me see if I can bring this up. Our second item, once we've identified like where are some of the stuck points in the onboarding process, what do I feel like I can improve, is to start making a list of what the onboarding process actually looks like. So, we can make a list of what are all the details that clients need to know. And it might be a long list, so don't be afraid of this. We're talking about things like, what do they need to know in terms of, contract. And everyone's, I should also preface this by saying, we all run our studios differently, and that's a good thing, right? Hopefully you have chosen a model for your business that supports you. So whether you're using like a tuition, subscription, a pay per lesson model, etc., a membership, your process is going to look a little bit different than anyone else's. But so taking that in mind, right, we're looking at what do they need to know about booking? What do they need to know about billing? What do they need to know about the schedule throughout the year? What do they need to know about registration every fall, etc.? Things like that. Making a list of all of those items. And then also, outside of contracts and things like that, what do they need to know in terms of practice? What do they need to know in terms of, the expectations that they might have for themselves in terms of growth? What oftentimes I find, specifically, tell me if this resonates, I find that with adult students, they may expect growth to be really, really quick. And while we do have little boop, spikes in our growth chart, we'll also have lots of plateaus. So, thinking about how can I start communicating these things from the get-go so that, down the line, 6 months after someone has been studying voice or piano, they're not feeling disappointed, and letting them know, hey, this is normal growth, or here's what needs to be improved, etc. So thinking about all of those types of things. And then also, another area that you may want to think about listing would be operating procedures, right? And of course, this is going to be different for everyone, depending on if you have a brick and mortar store that's not in your home, what does that look like? What does parking look like? What does pickup times, drop-off times, etc. look like? What are the expectations of how students are supposed to act in lessons, how teachers are supposed to act in lessons? This is especially important for those of you who may have multi-teacher studios. So you have more people that are working for you, and there's more challenges in that. So you want to make sure that you're outlining those expectations. So we're going to make a list of all of the processes, and then we're going to do something a little bit different than we have in the past. Rather than, because at this point, basically what I've described is hey, here's your studio contract and all of the things that you should probably let your clients know. Instead of that, now we're looking at, hey, how are we going to communicate these things, not just in a stack of papers or a lengthy PDF that we're sending to people or a Google form that we're sending to people? How are we going to build these items into a longer onboarding process so that we are repeating things and that we are bringing things up without waiting for the questions to be answered? So I want to return to something that Grace said earlier. There's this fine line that we try to walk when we're onboarding a student, especially in that first lesson, right? Because we have so much information that we want to share with them that we don't want to feel like we're overwhelming them. And there can be this little bit of guilt that we carry with us if we're using lesson time to go over this stuff. And so I would like to invite you all to take a deep breath and release some of that guilt. Because remember, this is not just about teaching piano or guitar or violin or voice. Lesson times are not just about the learning of the instrument. It is also about the learning of the learning process. And part of that process is making sure that your clients and you have all the tools that you need in order to become successful learners. And to be a successful learner, we need a lot of those items that we've mentioned, right? We need to know how to pay our invoice on time. We need to know what form of communication the studio is typically going to use. We need to know, hey, if I text my teacher at 9 a.m. on a Saturday, when can I expect to get an answer? Hopefully it's not until like 10 a.m. on Monday, just saying, assuming you don't work on Saturdays. You might. Okay, great. We have a good takeaway that I'd love to bring up on the screen. Thank you, Missy. Let me take that down. We'll bring your comment up here. Yeah. Okay, the lesson times are not just about the learning of the instrument. They are also about the learning of the learning process. And so it's nice to take that extra time. So what we're going to do now is move into step number 3, right? So just as a quick recap, we've examined the gaps. We have made a list of what actually needs to happen in our onboarding process. And then we're going to start deciding some things. So we're going to decide what needs to happen and when. So let's kind of break this down a little bit. So thinking about, okay, here, what needs to happen on day 1 when someone is brought into the studio? Some things that might happen during actually, let's back it up a bit. I got ahead of myself. See, I got excited and I wanted to get straight to the teaching. It's natural. So in the initial onboarding, right? Once somebody has agreed that they are wanting to start lessons in the onboarding, the steps are getting them scheduled. It's getting them set up with an invoicing system. It's, making sure that they know how to log into things. So there might be, you can, if you want, send everything in one email or split it up over a series of days, over a series of weeks, and let people know from the get-go, hey, you are going to be getting X number. You'll discover how many emails you need later. You're going to be getting 5 emails that are really important. And they're going to detail different areas of our onboarding process. Now, 5 might feel too much. Maybe it's 2, maybe it's 3, but letting people know from the get-go, hey, this is what our onboarding will look like. We're pretty high touch here, and we want to make sure that you have everything you need in order to be successful. So some of these things might happen in email. Some of them might also happen during lesson times. And if there's some guilt around, that onboarding process where like during the first lesson, you're having to take half of your time to show them around to everything, here is an idea. Let's space this out, right? So maybe during that first lesson, you're going to spend 5 or 10 minutes introducing them to the programs that you're going to be using. So if you're using any online platforms, if you're using any like lesson notes delivery, or if you are giving them, if you're kind of old school like me, I still like to be old school. If you are giving them a new student binder, rather than just handing them the binder, let's spend some time going through this binder and showing them how they can best use it. Same thing with the online resources, right? So that might be during lesson number 1. Maybe during the next lesson, or a lesson that makes sense because it's close to the invoicing process, right? When invoices are going out, maybe then you talk to your client or the guardian or parent of your client and make sure, hey, I just wanted to touch base with you and wanted to let you know that the invoicing is going out this week, and I just wanted to take a moment to show you how you can access your invoice. Or if you are on auto pay, just to remind them, I just wanted to let you know that our auto pay is going to be going out this week, so you're going to be getting an email from me letting you know when that payment has gone through. If you have any questions, let me know. right? Or you can check it with them later to say, hey, I just wanted to make sure that you got the receipt from the studio, during that first month. We want to make sure that all the emails are getting seen, are getting delivered. So just checking in with you to make sure that you got what you needed. Kind of just taking that onboarding process that we tend to like put in this big clump and spacing it out so that we are reiterating things, because everybody needs repetition, especially nowadays when we have a lot of stuff that's delivered to us. And it can feel a little overwhelming when it happens all at once, but also to give them that extra, hey, I want to make sure that you're comfortable here. I want to make sure that you're seen. And I also, I didn't mention this earlier, so I do want to mention another aspect of onboarding that I feel like can be very important. For both multi-teacher studios and for studios that are working with, just one teacher and maybe a smaller number of clients, in the first few months, if you're working with an ideal client, which I hope you are, we have this marvelous opportunity to make sure that we're checking in and that people feel comfortable and that they're happy. And so there's an opportunity here to ask for feedback, to ask for testimonials, etc., depending on how settled in your student is, if they've had a really good experience, etc. So that can be another aspect that is built into your onboarding process, especially those who are multi-teacher studios, right? So there's different things that we can start building into that process. They might even like dip into doing some marketing to clients if they've joined a group class, and maybe marketing some one-on-one lessons or vice versa, etc. Just making sure that they feel seen, appreciated, and that you are telling them about the offerings at the studio. So all of these things, deciding the what and the when, and spacing it out, and putting it down on a piece of paper that goes, okay, so this item happens at this point. This item happens at this point. Now, if this is starting to feel like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of things to remember, know that automation is your friend. And, there are ways to put systems in place so that emails are getting automated and sent out to people. Or, maybe if you're in a big multi-teacher studio, you have an assistant, somebody who is responsible, basically like a community manager, for making sure that clients are being onboarded properly and that they have all the things that they need. All right, so let me get back to this for a second here. Yes. See, Karen, that's great. Like learning, you're going to learn along the way that there might be some other items in your process, like teaching students to respect their music. Yes, we don't want them showing up to festivals with music that is like torn apart. Okay, so if you have found this valuable so far, do me a little favor here and give me some hearts, give me some thumbs, click those buttons. And give me your comments down below and let me know, what are your takeaways from today. We're going to, in just a moment here, we're going to make sure that we are putting our recap here together. And so again, I want to reiterate, see, right? If you put the word onboard down below, whether you're on Facebook or on Instagram, you're going to be able to get a hold of the show notes from today. You're also going to be able to get a hold of the way to set up text reminders or email if you would like to join our email list. So you can get all of that information by putting the word onboard down there. If you're watching on YouTube, you can look for the pinned post in our live chat, or you can look down into the description here and there will be a link that you can click in order to get everything that I just talked about there. So before we get to this next step here, just wanted to remind everyone. And of course, if you are looking at all this stuff and you're going, I'm not sure how to identify the gaps. I'm feeling like this process just feels a little heavy to me. I think I might need some assistance with this. This is one of the services that we offer with one-on-one coaching. So if that is something that you are interested in and you want to take a look at your inquiry process, you want to look at your marketing, you want to look at your onboarding, etc., and getting testimonials, that is my specialty. And so feel free to reach out to me and we can have a chat about supporting you one-on-one. All right, let's do our recap here today as we get this all kind of put together. Okay. Oh, wait, before we do that, Brenda had a question. Would love to know if you have recommendations for automated onboarding platforms. So depending on your needs, Brenda, there are, a few different systems that I would keep in mind. Something that a free system that would be great for anyone who wants like a digital checklist would be something like Trello. You can create lists for onboarding that allows you to keep track of where somebody is. And of course, there's always pen and paper, having some type of a checklist that lets you know where somebody is in the onboarding process. That can be really useful as well. There are different ways to automate emails. If you want to go into something like an email marketing platform where you can create sequences. I actually use MailChimp. It's not my favorite, but it works. But there are so many other types of delivery systems. And also, keep in mind that some of the systems that you may already be using, things like My Music Staff or Fonz or Duet Partner, things like that, they may also have automation options for you to like put together emails that will be delivered in the first month, or reminders that are going to be sent via text, etc. So there's so many options out there. So those are just a couple that I hope will be useful to you. Yes, again, like cheers to pen and paper. All right, so let's do our recap here. Let me get ready for our recap. All right, so here we go. As I'm doing this, give us your takeaways. Put the word onboarding down below if you'd like to get a hold of things. So let's do this. All right, our little recap for today. Bringing a new client into the studio is super exciting. It makes me feel kind of like Ariel at the beginning of Part of Your World, where I'm, swimming around and singing about forks and, snarfblats or whatever they had there, saying, look at this stuff, isn't it neat? And you get so excited and you get straight to, hey, I can't wait to teach this first lesson, yada, yada, yada. That's all important. But you know what's more important? Giving clients a good onboarding experience and making sure that you are setting them up for success. So here are 3 things that you can do in order to take your onboarding process that might have looked like handing somebody a stack of papers and hoping that they read it into a process that is a little bit more mindful. It's a little bit slower. It's got some repetition in it, and it's going to make sure that people have what they need in order for them to feel successful. So this is going to allow us to build solid relationship foundations from the beginning. It's going to allow us to set expectations and to answer questions. And it's going to allow us to demonstrate fully how the studio works. So here are 3 things that you can do in order to build an onboarding process so that you can onboard people like a pro. The first thing, number 1, is to examine the gaps in your process and ask yourself, where are clients getting stuck? Where are they struggling? What are some of the questions that I'm getting consistently, like during the first week, or maybe during the first month, or maybe even 6 months down the road? Take note of those things and think about what are the things that I'm consistently having to answer. Those are probably items that can be built into your onboarding process in a way that you've added a little bit more repetition. You've kind of checked in with people a little bit more. So we start by examining the gaps. The second thing to do is to make a list of the onboarding process. And you've probably already done something kind of like this in your studio contract or in your studio policy. You have a list of all the things that people need to know. But then let's be even more clear about, hey, here are all the things that people need to know about billing. Here are all the things people need to know about accessing lesson notes. Here are all the things they need to know about how to enter and exit the studio, where to park, etc. Right? So let's make a list of those things. And then the third thing is to decide what and when. When are these things going to be mentioned to somebody? Not just in the studio contract that you're handing at the beginning of that first lesson, or sending in an email as they book their first lesson, but thinking about how can I reiterate these things in a mindful way so that people understand and that they actually get this information, because let's be honest, people don't read. So what is going to happen during lessons, not just the first lesson, but maybe the first month of lessons. What is going to be delivered via email, not just in one, but maybe during a series of emails. And what might also be delivered like via text or things like that. So examine the gaps, make a list of all the things that need to happen, and then decide what and when those things need to happen. And hopefully then you will have built an onboarding process that feels more complete, that feels a little bit slower and a little bit more mindful, and that gives your students and you and their parents everything they need in order to be successful. If you would like to get a hold of this information, if you are watching on Instagram or Facebook, give me the word onboard down below. And if you are on YouTube, look for the link that is in the description here and in the chat where you can get a hold of all of those notes. All right, so that is it for today. Thank you so much for being here. We will be back next week with more goodness about business, mindset, marketing, and all of those things. So in the meantime, stay savvy and stay you, because you are an amazing teacher and there's no one in the world quite like you. And I think you are pretty dang awesome. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.